Welcome to Life Esteem, a program committed to delivering information that's important to you and your community.
Hello, welcome again to Life Esteem. Always great to have you as a viewer. I always said and I always mean it, right? Yeah. Pat and I always look forward to this program. Today we're going to talk to two great people in our community who are doing great things with our youth. And they are Jacquetta Hunter, who's a education director for Abraxas, Harrisburg.
Yes.
Okay. And also Lenwood Sloan, and he's a catalytic agent, but we all know Lenwood Sloan. Come on now. This man's the man of the arts, and we're so glad to have him in the studio with us as well as Jacquetta. So you are the education director. Tell us all about Abraxas.
Harrisburg Abraxas Student Academy is an alternative education program for adjudicated youth. So all of our youth who might have been referred out to our program for truancy issues, also for just different fumblings and encounters with the law on probation, they get referred to our program. Also students who are involved with children and youth, they are all referred to our program. So what we do on our end is that we give them the educational component, rehabilitate them, and then we send them back to their home districts to be integrated back into general population, to say the least.
I'm so glad to see you in this role because I first met Jacquetta when she was a student at Sci-Tech High, and it was great. And you were just a bubbly student then, and she is a bubbly person now, and just got it done. And here you are, a graduate now, and giving back to community, you know. And then I just saw this man just the other day, and he's up to working with Sci-Tech High students and John Harris students. And so tell us about what you're doing, Mr. Sloan.
Well, I'm working on two initiatives in parallel. The first initiative is connected to a resolution that the City Council of Harrisburg passed to create a youth city council. That youth city council was to shadow each of the city council members and the major staff members of the mayor's staff that involved with the city council and bring to those council members the voice of young people. And also activate themselves in citizenship, leadership, and initiatives that the council is dealing with that directly impact young people.
Seems to me that you would be a great match for Abraxas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and how do you think Mr. Sloan would fit in? We'll get right back to Mr. Sloan too.
One thing that I have always done as an English teacher before I got into the role as education director or principal, I was an English teacher, and one thing that I always do was that I would structure my class so that students would have full autonomy over the educational process. Being in the English classroom, there's never a right or wrong answer. There's always a justification behind that answer, and always encourage the students to find a way to explore literature and to, come into contact with, their own research. And, incorporating, what you're doing, Mr. Lenwood, and also what our students at in our facility are doing is introducing them to governmental policies and local government policies, because a lot of our students, they don't know a lot about that process or how to actually get involved. A lot of our students are very opinionated, as most teenagers are. So if we can incorporate their voice, their opinion, into that form, so they understand that they do have a say within the government.
That leads into the second parallel project, which is called the Speak Team. The 7 students for the council and the 5 students for their administration can't speak on behalf of young people if they don't speak to the young people.
Exactly.
So we have set up what we call Speak Teams in middle schools and high schools around Dauphin County, and our kids, the young council, come to those Speak Teams with 4 issues: housing and welfare, transportation and safety, workforce preparation, and enrichment and lifelong learning. Those young people in those Speak Teams tell us like it is, and they're very, and then our kids reframe that into statements that they make in public testimony at the city council meetings. So your kids could be a Speak Team.
Exactly.
They could speak on those issues as they impact their lives. And
so we have so many, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, the thing that I think is really so, I'm really hearing, and first I've heard about this in regard to your event you had yesterday, but this is being reintroduced because I remember years ago as a student, we did this type of thing in school. We had stuff on civics, we had stuff on student government, and we really try to know how the system operates and who needs to be looking at certain roles and places they can play. But something happened.
That was one of my challenges, Nate and Pat, was I thought it was going to be easy at first. First, we were going to go to the student councils of each school and talk to them. We found out there aren't student councils in those schools.
That's what I'm
That
saying.
whole system. So we've been working with Roland and Marshall and Camp Curtin to rebuild their student councils.
Yeah.
So there is a civic, so we go in, I say catalytic agent. We go in and we say, okay, who can we talk to? Maybe it's the after-school teacher, maybe it's the debate club, maybe it's the theater club, who's organizing kids into focus groups about the things that impact their lives, and how can we begin there to build student councils and citizenship and civics groups.
And Jacquetta, your students are coming into Abraxas. They are adjudicated youth,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
So they were in the systems. They
Yeah,
were in
exactly.
Harrisburg,
Right.
Central
Exactly.
City, Central Dallas, whatever. And then they come to you. So how do you rehabilitate them? How do you get them to see the value of society again? What is the main ingredient? What's the one thing that you think turns them around?
Well, one thing, and this kind of ties into what we're doing at Abraxas, one thing I have my teachers are reading, there's a book called For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood, and for the rest of y'all too. It's a book that talks about the reality pedagogy. And so one thing that I'm teaching my teachers is that we have our realities as, educated adults, and then we have the reality of our students who, they're not where we are chronologically, like mentally and emotionally, they're not where we are. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we shy past our reality and tap into the reality.
Yeah, tap into
So being able to, merge those two together and being able to tap into the reality and say, hey, what are you guys going through? Like, what are some of your struggles as an adjudicated youth, as a teenager, as an adolescent, and bringing those opinions and those statements into what they can contribute back to society.
And our process is, and how can we focus and structure that into a public testimony that you can make to
Exactly.
legislators and change agents and people. So you make a difference now.
Right.
You're not the citizens of tomorrow. You're the citizens of today.
Exactly.
You got,
That's right.
this impacts you today.
Yeah,
And Mr.
absolutely.
You
Lenwood,
have
a
a
lot-
voice,
And a lot of our students, they don't understand it. They're so stuck in a reality,
That's right.
And in their reality, it states that children are to be seen but not heard. And my role as a principal and as just an adult and as an educator is to have them utilize that voice and put it toward, positive
Yeah.
use and to inspire, people who share that same reality, who share, that Cajun mindset,
And then our thing is, what are the vehicles of that? Print is a vehicle. Television is a vehicle.
Absolutely.
Web is a vehicle. So what vehicle best fits this issue
Let me say
of
this,
youth?
and not to cut you off, sorry, but Buck, the book called Buck by M.K. Asante. Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
Well, M.K. Asante is a professor out of Morgan State University in Baltimore, and he was a speaker about 2 years ago at the Midtown Scholar Bookstore. His father is Malife Asante, the founder of Afrocentrism, but his journey to becoming one of the youngest full-time professors at a university at the age of 26.
Wow.
Think about that. This guy was thrown out of every school in Philadelphia. He was incorrigible beyond belief. And his mother, of course, is a world-renowned choreographer, by the way. So read the book because it's a hard read. He tells it like it is. He speaks from the street lingo, but it's a very scholarly book because he's taking you on a journey, and he's taking you from the world that he was in to the world that he's in now. And I'm telling you, you want to get your students associated with the book called Buck. And it's you can actually buy it at the Midtown Scholar.
Okay.
But more than that, bring him in. He still looks very young. He also is a filmmaker. So he made the film The Black Candle. He also made the one called Motherland, I think it is. He's an excellent filmmaker, and he's a scholar. So, but he also can speak the street lingo. So whatever you do, and he's been to all these schools. He's thrown out all the best alternative schools in Philadelphia. And we got his life together. Think about that. It's like wow. So anyhow, I get excited when I think about what his presentation alone was.
It was excellent.
Yeah,
I mean, just
absolutely
worth.
fantastic. Yeah, because he's letting you know that those students do have hope.
Exactly.
And they have a future, and they can be turned around. Yeah. And you too can do it.
I thought in some of those schools he was probably thrown out in Philadelphia.
Where are you from originally, Mr. Sloan?
My education and my integration into teaching really comes out of Philadelphia and Temple University. And in my sophomore and junior year, you were supposed to do some training with youth. it was 1968 and Philadelphia was burning.
Okay.
You know, the things were rough. We went into those schools with a pedagogy and they blew us out of the water. You know, the reality was the pedagogy. So that's kind of affected the way I teach. When I come in with a pedagogy, but I ask the kids, what is the reality of this pedagogy in relationship to your life?
Exactly.
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
My heart is Louisiana. You know, I always say I'm from New Orleans,
All right.
but I was blown away by Katrina and adopted by Harrisburg.
All right.
So,
Well,
long journey here.
Lucky for us.
Long journey home.
And Jacquetta, you are a graduate of SciTech, but where did you go to school beyond there?
Where did I go to school? Well, my first elementary school was Camp Curtin. Then we moved from uptown to off of 13th Street. So I went to Lincoln Elementary. Then we moved to Southside Harrisburg. So I went to Foos. Then from Foos we went to Roland. Roland, that's when Roland was all 8th grade.
Right.
Then from Roland we went to SciTech, where it was called Harrisburg Polytechnic Preparatory
That's
High
right,
School,
that's right.
in the basement of Roland
Roland.
Middle School.
I
And then we
remember that, yeah.
eventually moved to where they're located now, downtown.
And so in your degrees,
College?
college?
College, they're not a go. My undergraduate degree is in English secondary certification from Shippensburg University, and I graduated in 2011. Then I have a master's in arts and English literature and composition with a concentration in African American literature,
Okay.
with a cultural studies aspect from Millersburg University, and I graduated in
Outstanding.
spring 2016.
Okay.
Everything and everywhere.
Now you're working on that principalship, is that what I understand?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff, go ahead.
That's
But-
outstanding.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
But you're a
indeed.
Harrisburg product,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so you've seen a lot of your classmates go this way or that way.
Exactly.
So tell me, what's the difference? Why do some students end up, and why do some students, what's your experience?
It's priorities,
Okay.
and it's also I'm a firm believer that the first system of education happens within the household.
There you go.
My mother, Katrina Coles, I know she's watching. She did not play that. It's
Okay.
either we went to school, if you didn't want to go to college, it's either military
Okay.
or we get a job. But my mother, as soon as we came home, we changed from out of our school clothes into our play clothes, and we sat there. She would make us read, write our name, practice writing our name, practice cursive. When I was in elementary school, my mother bought the Highlights magazines, like
Yeah,
educational
I remember those.
magazines, and we also had the Dr. Seuss catalog. So she would always read to us. We read to her. That was our thing. And if the sun was still up and the street lights weren't on, then we went outside to play.
Fantastic.
But we had a very structured household. Even a product of the inner city school district. But my mother, she didn't play that.
All right. Go
And so I
ahead.
took those, I took those belief in that structure with me to SciTech, to Shippensburg, to Millersville. Now I'm bringing it to my students.
Yeah, yeah.
So that the interaction I have with my students are like, oh my God, you sound just like my mom. You sound like my grandma. I said, well, thank you.
All right.
Yes,
There you go.
indeed.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes,
And
indeed.
Mr. Sloan, when you run into students like Jacquetta, I mean, you, obviously, and I ran into her when she was, what were you? You a junior at SciTech when I first met you? 'Cause I was
Freshman.
Freshman.
Yeah, I was fresh.
She was bright then and just doing poetry the whole 9 yards. But how do you nurture them? How do you take that diamond in the rough?
I'm glowing for you, young sister. I'm glowing for you because this legacy piece is what I have to say. The students in Harrisburg in general and their families in particular think that we are in a desperate desert of possibility. And there are incredible people in their communities who have achieved these things. When I look at SciTech and Jacquetta, I also think of Cornelius Johnson
Oh, yeah,
on the city
definitely.
council, or
Absolutely.
Destiny
Yeah,
Hodge on the
Destiny
city
Hodge.
council.
Exactly.
That's the legacy work. So I'm trying to reach down and say, you are somebody already. But let me show you, let me connect the dots for you. Let me show you some of the other somebodies just like you who lived on the same block, who did the same struggle, who rose to the occasion, to the quality. My mother says that poverty is a place on the map unless you want it to be the destination of your life.
Go ahead.
You know?
I like that.
So that has been my thing. You may not have anything in your pocket, but you are not poor if you enrich. And and to reach out through all of those ways and all of those expressions. I personally believe that art and culture, history and heritage is the best tool for me and the turnkey for me with kids. Because when I can, for example, went 2 weeks ago to look at the desperate walls of Harrisburg, boarded up buildings. Then the week after, we went through the city and looked at all the murals that were being painted, and then we talked to the artists at Sprocket about each kid identifying a torn down place that the artists of Harrisburg could go in and revitalize through the mural program. So you have the power to change your environment right now.
That's right.
Now, that's my.
The thing that's really exciting too is that based on both of you, now the young men and women that come through Abraxas, what's the average length of time that they're with you? Does it vary or?
It varies.
It does vary.
It varies. You'll have students who would do a mandatory 45 days with us. Okay. You may have students who may, if they exceed all the program expectations, then they can be out before 45 days. I have one student who came for one marking period, excelled, grades improved. He got the credits that he was missing from his home district, and we sent them off. We discharged him, successful discharge, and we hear, successful stories about him, today. Then you may have some students who, for whatever reason, they just can't grab their mind around inheriting a new reality for themselves. So those are those students who've been with us maybe since last April, maybe since October. So those are the students that we tarry with them. And we continue to have those. It's Harrisburg Abraxas, we have a small community and it's very family oriented, so that when students exhibit certain behaviors, come into my office, shut the door, we're gonna have a nice conversation. It's that intimate setting where we have that privilege and opportunity to actually, reach that student one-on-one and break through those walls and break down those barriers.
Sure.
May I ask what happens to them afterwards?
You took my question.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Yeah, and how you
Well, after they discharge, we send them back to their home district and they're re-enrolled into their home district. And information that we receive from them, as through probation, because we communicate a lot with Dauphin County juvenile probation. So yeah, a lot of information that we get comes from them saying, hey, updates, students do well, and it's just
great.
It feels good to know that you made a difference in that student's life, because that same exact gentleman that we had a successful discharge, I said, listen, how long do you want to be here? It's a mandatory 45. How long do you want to be here? 30. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay. All right, yes.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Well, I asked that question because one of the things, getting back to Lenwood in regard to the work that he does and the artist that he also is, that I find based on the work that we've done over the years, especially in Camp Hill Prison, I've been in Dauphin County with the women and stuff, there's a lot of untapped talent there.
Oh my goodness.
And what I see happen too, unfortunately, often is that they aren't having the venue to really be expressive. And how can we bring that more available to them? One of the things that Nate's doing on the first Friday of the month.
First Fridays, yeah. Down at the Writers' Workshop, which is at the Midtown Scholar Bookstore, from 7 to 9. The first Friday of the month, we have Youth Friday. And then so far, we've had a tremendous turnout of the Police Athletic League, thanks to Lillian Bates, Angela Bates, Pearl Sweeting, and others. They bring down these young people. Jimmy Jones, in fact, also brings down young people. And then we have youth from the NAACP AXO competition, and they are preparing themselves for the competition that will take place locally at John Harris High School for all the area school districts. And then from there, we take them to the Nationals. And last year, the Nationals was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we were able to take out some fantastic young people, one of which was Jada Washington, the fantastic singer, who's really making a name for herself around here. And then also, we're going to Baltimore this year. The national competition, and it's always an association with the national NAACP. So it's a wonderful opportunity for young people. And here's the deal, though. I'd love to see more young people involved in it. Even though we have a nice turnout, it should be we should be telling people, no, we're overflowing. But that's not the reality. And so Copper Brunson does a fantastic job of pulling this together, but we need more young people to take a chance.
And see, our thing could be to carry that forward. You have something to say, here's a vehicle to say it.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's a place where you can gather and convene, and a platform where you could be heard.
And utilizing these students too, that we know have something that they can nurture and have that platform to be able to be seen. And that's what helps them with their self-worth, their self-confidence, and moving forth is once they tap into that zone, I call it, that thing that really they have passion for. And you'll see that make changes in other aspects of their lives. But we got to identify that.
You know, we have our next show, we're interviewing some dynamic ladies who are putting on a play called, I think it's called The Rapture, and Jackie Maxey, who's a local talent, and everyone knows her as part of the Scott White family, tremendous lady. She will be talking about that play. And I would imagine vehicles like that, you know, if we get young people involved and they see that stage and they understand what it means to be part of a cast and the discipline that it takes, you know. So we shouldn't sleep on our local opportunities such as that. And so we'll be talking with, you know, some, again, the young ladies about that play. But anyhow, yeah, we just got to keep it moving. And so did you get enough support from community? Lenwood, and all the work that you do, did you get enough support from community? And how can we support you better?
You know, when the gentleman asked me what my title would be, I say catalytic agent. You know, I consider myself yeast or glue. And when you glue something, the glue's not supposed to show. You know, if you messed up, the glue shows. If you did, your job is to bring things together and hold them right. So that's kind of what I am. I have retired 3 times from really great positions. As you know, I won the Pennsylvania Humanities Council Award and the Tourism Life Legacy Award last year. I think that the institutional work is behind me. The grassroots work is in front of me. So my feet are back on the ground. That's a kind of poverty thing, but I've been poor before, so I know how to move in the streets and make change, you know, without sponsorship.
I would hope that community, though, would step up, and there's enough grant writers out there and grants that someone would recognize the gift that you are.
But I'll tell you really quickly, the grant that brought me to SciTech ran out, and the kids came to me and they said, Mr. Sloan, was this all about the grant? I thought this was about your connection to us. So we need to know before we go any further, are you going to be around after the grant? You know, I said to them, I'll be around as long as you are around. So my contract is with the kids of Harrisburg, you know, and when they show up, I tell them, you are responsible for monitoring yourself. When you all disappear, I'm gone. So
same question to Ms. Sunner. So, you know, how can we better support you? Because you're doing great work with, you know, a population that it's real difficult because they're trying to find themselves. But we need to play a role.
I'm all about establishing, you know, network connects and utilizing, you know, my resources and tapping into other resources as well. One resource I tapped into was Mr. Floyd Stokes, the super reader. I knew that the 500 man reading, day of reading was coming up, so I contacted him.
All our heroes, you know.
So I contacted him because I know Abraxas, they've never had that, you know, that visit or that, you know, that experience brought into the school. So, you know what? I'm very big on literacy. I'm an English teacher. That's what my degree's in. You know, we have to get it here. So I, you know, brought it up to Mr. Stokes, and Jamar Johnson also reached out to me. We got everything set up. So next Tuesday we'll have David Bottero, the mayor is also coming, and Mr. Basil Talib, who are also going to volunteer their time and set up a discussion panel for our students, do some poetry readings from Mr. Talib, and also have that dialogue between about why literacy and why reading and writing is so important.
Well, I would encourage you to talk to your kids also about multicultural literacy, you know, because we have an assumption of poverty of spirit, you know, and there's all this incredible art in the multicultural community that's come around, all its assets and resources. So I too, my mother made us take out 6 books from the library. She was a domestic and a housekeeper. We had to read those 6 books while she was cleaning somebody's bathroom and report to them at dinner. But the multicultural, who are we? Who are our people? What was our legacy? Where did we come from? You know, who are our heroes? What star? What constellation?
That is my cup of tea.
You know, that's what. Great.
Just getting acclimating the students to different things. I'm very big on African American literature and African American studies. I knew Black History Month was coming up, of course. So one thing I did was I took my students down to the Black Wax Museum. Never been. Some of them never been outside of Harrisburg. You know, I talked to my staff about it. A lot of them haven't been there. I'm like, oh my goodness, how haven't you? Oh my gosh, like whatever. We're just gonna go. So we went, and it was just like, oh my goodness, just like the students were so into it. The staff were just into it. Like it was a very educational process, very visual. It was. Oh, my goodness.
You know, Nate, I had a metaphysical weeping last night at 11:59 on February 28th. That Black History Month was about to expire. So I would like to say to you, your history is worth every month. You know,
That's right.
all of you all out
We
there,
talked about that last
please,
night.
January 15th and March 12th and November 22nd and April 7th is still Black History Month, you know.
The Harrisburg University of Science and Technology had a Black History program on the 28th, and it was excellent. They brought in community, had the students participate, and it was that finale that we needed, you know, because there's so much energy in that room. So it's all good. But I like what Tom Joyner says, 365.
Exactly.
That's right.
You know?
365.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And also Les
Ford.
Ford, who mentioned that they were going to celebrate in March that Black History program because, you know, it's timing. And people said, well, why are we waiting until? He said, well, why not? He said, you know, we don't ever stop being.
Exactly.
Come on,
You're relevant.
keep doing it.
The month is over, but it still lives on. It's an attitude.
That's
It's
right.
Right.
research,
It's an attitude.
educating,
That's
never.
right.
It's an attitude. It's
That's
spirit
right.
research. Never,
Absolutely.
That's it.
never
So
expired.
February could be a reunion
There you go.
of our
Family
culture.
reunion, the
Family
culture.
reunion of culture, but every day.
I like that.
Every
Yeah,
day,
that makes sense.
every day.
Every day.
And the other thing we have to do is, as we celebrate our own, we appreciate others. And so one of the things I love is the, you know, having people appreciate my culture and me appreciate others.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then it just opens up the whole world. Like you said, the multicultural richness of it all. You know, it's just amazing.
is.
So, you know, I know we're going to run out of time. And so tell us a little bit more about Abraxas and why students get there and what we can do to stop them. We don't want to put you out of business, but I know what you're thinking. How do we stop students really, though, from needing Abraxas?
Well, one thing that we're doing, I'm taking the students down to Millersville University because we're going to have another a colloquium, a forum that talks about the school to prison pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about how school behaviors are criminalized. I know the governor just passed a law on the truancy, how they no longer want to reach out to AEDY programs for truant behaviors, but, you know, try to deal with them on their own. But even when students get to Abraxas, our responsibility is to treat them as students. There's
There
nothing
you
wrong
go.
with them.
There you go.
Like the
Yes.
kids are like, yeah, we're at bad school. No, you're not bad. You just made some dumb decisions.
That's it.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I know we're out of time. Mr. Lenwood, how can we support your program and things that you're doing?
The first thing you can do, your listeners can do, is the schools that their children go to are involved in our program, and we're asking every one of those kids to sit down at whatever their equivalent of the kitchen table is and have these conversations with their adults and their communities. So the very first thing your listeners can do is support us, is to support their kids in the discussion of citizenship. You know, the second thing they can do is make sure that the principals of those schools and the teachers, and I have to shout out to Michelle Felton at SciTech and Mr. Montgomery and Mrs. Sullivan at Roland, is support those teachers who are taking their time and investing in my program and giving up their classroom time.
Well, sir, I hate to cut you off. This is a fascinating conversation.
Yes, it is,
We'll
definitely.
continue some other time, okay? But thank you both for coming in. We want to thank
Thank you for
too
having us.
for all that you do to support these fantastic programs. But by supporting our youth in these programs, you support the entire community and you make us all better and stronger. Thank you so much for watching this program called Life Esteem, and we hope to see you next time on Life Esteem. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Very spirited conversation.